Go.
Welcome to Not a Great Whisperer podcast. This is your host, Katie Ray. I am joined with the sweet Ginger today. Welcome.
Hello.
I met Ginger at a networking event. Again, I always push for people going out, making yourself uncomfortable, going to a group of some networking event that you don't know anybody at, and just kind of meeting people and just bringing your personality out. And I think that's something we did at that event. We literally were just sitting down, just talking shit to each other, I feel like. Because you were in a rocking chair. And I was just like, oh, it looks comfortable. I'm on like a stool. But I think that's super important when people just go out and meet people. So welcome to the podcast, Ginger.
Thank you.
I know we set up a meeting to chat, but I really want you to give the audience really what you do. I think it's super unique and different, where I kind of had to understand more and ask you questions exactly what you were doing. And then we'll kind of get into how you got into it.
Okay. Well, I run a business called Sensible Woo. And I combine my metaphysical background with my professional background as a librarian and a digital archivist. And I meshed the two together into a system I call Digital Feng Shui. And basically, I work with other female online business owners. And the short of it is I teach them how to run their online businesses and actually make them run online. So we deal with software and file data management, and we fix all their workflow problems and how they communicate with staff if they have any.
So like the back end?
The back end.
Okay. And what made you get into that? Like, how did you kind of fall into the kind of consulting all of that and then kind of putting it together, right? Because you do assessments to see exactly what they're doing.
We do. So I feel like it was kind of a path to get there. I really honestly didn't think I would leave a corporate career a long time ago. I started in entertainment, made movies. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool.
Where'd you live then?
I was in Los Angeles. I was the digital archivist at Disney Animation.
Wow.
And it was super cool.
I didn't know that was your background.
Yeah.
When you say that, are you like, oh, yeah, that was a different lifetime?
It was a totally different lifetime.
That is crazy.
But it was amazing. And I got to see things that normal people probably will never get to see or do. Mm-hmm. And that's very special. But then when I left Los Angeles, I was just kind of getting really tired of the whole Southern California scene. And a colleague of mine from a few moons ago had moved to Austin to work for a library. And she asked me if I would come and work there. And I figured, you know what, why don't I actually work in public libraries since I am a librarian?
Wow.
Yeah. And they were going to do a renovation of their main location. So I'd get to do this huge construction project and really push my limits in terms of like technical management. So I went there and did that for a few years. And while I was there, I started doing business programming in the library because I had a blog. I wrote a sewing blog.
Wow.
And I made some money from it. It was back in the golden days of blogging where you made money from sponsorships and advertisements, which you can't really do so easy anymore.
Yeah.
Saturated. It's totally saturated. And they just don't give out the money like they used to.
It was new.
No.
It was fresh.
It was.
I still can't believe you've been in the entertainment industry and then a librarian. Like really loud to quiet, I feel like.
It is. It was. But surprisingly, going into the public library space, my library director really believed in my side hustle. And she knew I always had this dream of working for myself and becoming an entrepreneur. So she really supported me in eventually reaching that goal. And we're still friends today, which is amazing. But then I finally leapt out of the library world, started consulting. And it was one of those things where like the divine was just saying, yep, it's right.
Yeah. Like
and
this is it.
Yeah. And these corporate contracts just sort of landed in my lap. All my old colleagues and friends from Los Angeles started emailing me and calling me up and saying, hey, it's been a while, but we really need someone. Are you available? And I said, actually, I think I am. So I started taking the contracts, made a ton of mistakes.
Yes.
Along the way.
Remind people it's never perfect.
It is so never perfect. And then while I was doing the corporate contracts, I realized I didn't really like doing the corporate contracts because usually it's a project manager who's your person and everyone's kind of got a foot out the door and the project's never really quite finished. And it's just not satisfying. I like to finish things. So in the meantime, while I was in Austin, I met my now partner. And Tiffany and we both met in an Akashic Records workshop. And we're both Akashic Records readers. And I also read the tarot.
Oh, you both are?
We both are.
Wow.
She channels directly, and I use the cards as a visual medium to kind of help me, like literally open a book and like put little bookmarks on pages and come back to things, which we'll get into. We'll talk about
wow.
And so while we're doing these joint readings together for clients, I'm discovering it's like the law of gravitational energy. Like unscientifically, more than 90% of the people coming to us were small business owners of some sort and women. And they would inevitably ask a business question in the middle of their reading. And half the time it was like, this does not require me to channel any
a business side.
Yeah. This is truly a technical question or a business question.
And the software launched at the right time. You're like, what?
Have you taken care of all these steps before
you thought about that? I have other things I need to show you. This is not the time.
So I started taking some clients off to the side, and we would have tarot business sessions, and they were real loose and messy at the same time. And I'd have my cards out the whole time, and we'd bounce back and forth between logical things and very esoteric things, and really helping them tap into their intuition. And then I realized that I don't think my library career is really over. I think I need to still leverage my expertise and deliver something of value to a community that clearly has a gap in the market. And so it took me many, many months, and it all came very organically. But I was starting to develop a pilot class that I thought I would do. And Tiffany was helping me pick the title, and Feng Shui came to us, and we're like, oh, Feng Shui, Your Bits and Bytes. That's a great title.
So she's helping you with this.
She helps me. She's like a sounding board for me. And then once that came together, I actually put that out and then canned it really, really quickly because I realized it was premature. But I kept going down this sort of Feng Shui idea, and I was really reinvestigating Feng Shui as a practice. And I was looking at the Western tradition Bagua map, the energy map that you use to grid your home. And I realized that every quadrant or section completely translated into something in the digital house. I was like, we spend so much time cleaning our homes and decluttering, and everybody's into Marie Kondo these days and all that. And I realized that nobody thinks about their digital world like a home, but it really is, because we spend a huge amount of time and energy in our lives inside these devices. Yeah.
Too much energy into it sometimes, but go on. It's your business. And then make it more organized in our heads.
Very, very much. And I discovered too, through conversations, that people really needed a visual tool that would help them park their ideas or their emotions or their anxieties or their goals in a way that they could still go back and reference it. Because the note that came back was, when you close the lid on your laptop, people often are like, it's out of sight, out of mind. They can't really conceptualize the bits and bytes. And my weird technology brain does. So I figured, well, if I can help other people get to that point or close to it, they'll probably have a lot more harmony with all of their tech gadgets.
So did the library card catalog help you with that?
A little bit.
Right? Isn't it funny?
It kind of, that
how people are like, that's an old school system, but it worked.
It totally works. The whole a system of organization really, really works.
But how does your perfectionism and organization stop you sometimes, right? Because of our first call together, I look behind her and there's Post-its and days and a calendar of just life size. And I was like, wow, how do I do that with my life? But how does that kind of stop you sometimes? How can you overcome those challenges of accepting what you have? It's not always going to be perfect sometimes, but you're very perfectionist, right? So how do you overcome that?
I have to check myself. I have to be mindful, practice mindfulness. And I work with a business coach now. That's been one of the big investments this year that's really helping me catapult things forward very quickly.
Sometimes coaches need coaches.
Yes. And one of the big things that I've been working on to stay mindful is I know what my priorities are in my current 90-day sprint. And when I'm looking at all the things I think I need to do, I can really check them against those goals and say, well, is this really going to get me to that goal today? Is that the most highest priority thing to do? And half the time it's not.
Yeah.
And so I park those ideas. I have a way to park my idea files, and I have a bright, shiny object list that I go over every week with my coach.
That's awesome. Oh, your list that you
My
created.
list.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
every week there's tons of ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm running a pilot class right now, and I have this student, and when she and I first got to know each other, we had this lengthy discussion, a really beautiful discussion about how we feel like we have this entrepreneurial superpower We're working so deeply in our purpose, and something happens in our entrepreneur brains where like the channels are just so open, and I called it a confetti explosion of the brain, where you're working on this one thing, but all of a sudden your brain goes like poof, and there's all these ideas for things, and you think that they're bright, shiny objects, and sometimes they are, but sometimes they are not. Sometimes they can be made productive or add value to what you're doing. But if everything feels so chaotic in that ADD sort of way, you need some tools to help you figure out how to rein in the chaos and actually make it productive. So we definitely do that in the work, in the classes.
So what's your favorite success story right now with the clients that you work with? Like, you don't have to name names, just like one of your, maybe like you went in like, this isn't going to work out, and it totally like blew your mind, the person on the other end.
I don't know that I've ever had the feeling like, I don't think this is going to work out.
Maybe not as optimistic as you usually. I'm just like negative Nancy walking into her. When were you like, I already hate this person? No, I'm saying like when you walked in, like, I wonder how, like, kind of like questioning, not sure. And then you were just like blown away by how great.
I think that kind of happened this past Friday. I had a half-day VIP client, and she runs a social media marketing agency actually here in Tampa. And she has some really big goals to grow her agency. And I was pretty clear before we went in, and this is also where my intuition comes in a little bit in my work. So I kind of already had a very clear inkling, almost like a reading. I feel like I'm going into a 4 or 5 hour reading. And I knew we were going to be doing a software tool comparison, but I was amazed at how quickly we got through the really sticky part at the beginning so we could get to the fun part and like start looking at possible solutions for her. So that really surprised me. I think in my logical mind, I thought like, oh man, I'm going to have to like, it's going to be like pulling teeth. I'm going to have to pull out all the requirements and figure out what she needs.
But she was ready for you.
She was so ready. She was like a Hermione Granger.
Was she kind of like you?
Yeah.
So you're like, this is
got her homework done.
I've looked it up. This is going to work.
Yeah.
So with everything going on, and you started a family, Tiffany, and you have a son.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
So during, like, where were you in your business? Were you a librarian then?
No, when I met Tiffany, I had just left the library world, and I was doing some consulting for a tech startup in Austin. Totally messy situation.
That's why you're in Austin.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was so stressed out. And then I saw this thing for an Akashic Records workshop.
That's when you went and met her.
And she was going through some personal life things too. And we were both like in the same space. And we both showed up to this workshop super sick. Like,
really?
I mean, just like snot machines, you know? And
at your best? Great.
Oh, yeah.
Felt right in love. It was perfect.
And she wanted to talk to me. And I was like, I don't know what to do.
I'm going to sneeze on you, and I don't want to right now. I need a Kleenex. That's awesome. How many years ago?
That was 4 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
And your son?
He's going to be 8 in January.
Okay.
So Tiff had him almost 8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tiff had him. Okay. That's amazing. So when you were in Texas, you moved from Texas with Tiffany?
Yes.
Okay.
So we realized that, I mean, we just knew. We were like, I don't feel like I belong here anymore. And in the culture is changing there. I mean, Texas is like super hot right now. Everybody wants to move to Austin.
Yeah.
And the culture started changing. And it wasn't just that. It was just the energetic feel of it. And we were also ready for something new. But then the conundrum entered the picture when you work for yourself. Like, yeah, I can pick wherever I want to go.
Yeah, and you can travel to where you need to go at times.
Yeah, and previously, at least for me, I've been a bit of a nomad in my adult life. And all my moves were dictated by jobs. They were like, please come work here, be here by this date.
Okay. So now you get to pick.
So now we get to pick.
That's hard.
We had this like total, literally around the country circle experience in a minivan where we drove.
I remember you telling me this. So cool.
And we added up the miles, and it was like we drove 30,000 miles in
That's so cool.
less than a month. And
just doing different things.
Yeah, checking out cities that we had a feeling for, going to visit them, just going to visit and being really surprised by some of the stops along the way. We were
not realizing like you would end up in this town or something. You're like, okay.
But yeah, we the house sold really fast because the housing market's so good in Austin. So through the holidays, we decided that we were just going to stay with some of her family in San Antonio. And so we did a lot of traveling during that time too for the holidays. And we kept coming back to Florida. And then all these random people who didn't know each other kept asking us about Tampa. And we were like,
oh, and you guys are all about those signs and feelings and all of it. So you're like, this is it.
Yeah.
But do you feel like this is your last stop?
No, we don't.
Yeah.
For me, so I grew up in Michigan. Well, Michigan was home base. And our family traveled all the time, as you know. We were back and forth to Asia a lot. Yeah. And for Tiff, this is her first major relocation out of state. So, as usual, we're yin and yang, coming at it from the opposite sides. And I feel like Tampa's been a really great place for us to get our bearings straight. Yeah. It's my first time relocating with family, and it's her first time relocating, period. And we've always loved the Ann Arbor.
That's a lot of first times.
It's a lot of first times, a lot. And we just started thinking about it recently. As much as we love the beaches, as much as we love the climate, there's some things that are missing for us.
Snow and possibly not sweating walking to your car.
Oh God, that would be so nice.
Like when I
love it up there.
I love Florida though. I absolutely, I couldn't move up. I was born up north, but I've just grown up in Florida. I was born in Buffalo, but which is super cold.
Buffalo's so pretty.
I know it is super pretty, but I couldn't see. It might be because my family's here. I'm not sure, but like I don't know. I couldn't imagine. The shoveling snow we talked about.
Yeah, in Buffalo winters.
But now he's 8, your son, so you can make him shovel some snow.
Oh yeah, it was a chore for me when I was.
Yeah, you can totally do that. He's at a good age.
I remember it would snow so much, and my parents would send me out. In the evenings after school, and it's your turn to shovel the driveway. And I'd be out there and be like that heavy wet snow. Yeah. And our neighbor had a snowblower, and he was so nice. He would come around the corner. They had the corner lot, and we were next to them. And he would come down the corner with a snowblower and do the whole sidewalk for me. I was like, thank you.
Oh my gosh, you got off easy on that. Way easy. But that's good. You have talks and open communication about that. I think people forget to do that in relationships, and they're sitting there and they're like, I know Tampa's not my last spot, but I'm just going to hold it in and see what happens on the other end. And you're like, no, you need to know. Yeah. But I think you met in a perfect spot of just kind of understanding, even though you were sick. But it's kind of it's a beautiful story too, because you were at a point of just kind of going on your own, right?
Yes. Yeah. I had always been on my own. It was just me and my...
But going on your own consulting too, because you weren't in a company anymore.
Well, and it was this huge period of transformation. And then Tiff is my first relationship, full-on relationship with a woman, and very publicly. And, I was always trying to do I'm a good girl. I'll check up all the right boxes, quotes.
Yeah, here I am. Yeah.
And, both of us say we've never been with someone who's like the other. And we're very yin and yang. And it shows up in the readings that we have done. And
you do them together.
We do, but we've just basically retired them because my work is taking off. Tiff's going to read on her own. And then maybe once or twice a year when we feel like it's right, we'll open up a week or two.
Yeah, I like that.
Readings,
But I like that's where you started.
Yes.
You know that right now it's not kind of sensible to do right now, but it's, I like that's where you started because you guys have that to go back on.
We do, and we've been reading a lot for each other lately, and that's been really nice. Sometimes you forget when you give your gift away a lot that you forget to do it for yourself. So I feel like
that's true in everything. I feel like that's totally true. We forget we're so nice to everybody else. You forget to be nice to yourself. I know it's a focus of small to medium sized businesses of women. Yeah. But now men are calling you for coaching and client, right? You've had a couple clients.
I have, in the new services, I haven't had any men yet, but I've had a lot of really great feedback from men. And I feel like I feel like by the middle of 2020, I have some dudes joining us.
That's good.
I just feel like it's inevitable. And the really interesting thing is that the men I talk with will be so upfront about the fact that they like the emotional component of the tech work.
Because they don't get it.
And they're like, I need it.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And then the women are the ones who are fully immersed in it, but they carry around this huge amount of shame and guilt. And so everybody has their different...
Wow, really? That's totally opposite of what I would think.
Yeah.
With the shame and, I don't know, the emotional part of it?
Yeah, the women that I talk with, they feel like they should have it more together, or they don't want to look stupid.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, now I understand that.
Yeah. But
That's hard.
It is really hard.
But so you do that type of reading with them or understanding coaching, but you also are back-end solutions. So you're providing both emotional and organizational structure for them.
I like to say sometimes that I help people with their tech, but really I'm helping you facilitate your emotional relationship to it.
You are.
Which is, there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
I feel like we need more of it.
Well, you do, because of project deadlines or things like people are trying to manage while trying to figure, I mean, you're talking to owners, right? Mm-hmm. So they're also have everybody else, if they have a team, like they also have their emotions to manage, and that's a lot on somebody.
It's a lot.
That's a ton. Have you ever been called to a client and just realized this wasn't going to work for you and kind of had to stop the relationship?
I feel like I learned that during my corporate contract days. And
what you didn't like, you already knew like your profile?
Yes. There were certain personality types. I'd kind of been keeping a catalog in my brain. And
don't get along.
I'm like, there are certain signs that come up. And I'm also really grateful that for the majority of this year, even though it was ridiculously painful and I resisted it the entire time it was happening, but I slowed down enough to have tons of conversations until it felt right to release the new services. And in the course of having all those conversations, there were people who I had identified who had been like previous clients, and whether they got readings or they had done some tech work or combination. Mm-hmm. And I went into the conversations with them asking, can I have an ideal client conversation? And I would pick their brain and ask them a ton of questions. And they were very generous with their information and their time, which was beautiful. And I went in thinking, oh, that's the person, that's the kind of person. And then I started getting to know other people because I would go to networking events and I would do other things. And I started having wider conversations. And then I realized, oh, wait, there's more qualities that makes up this ideal person. Yeah. And some of the differences, it started to feel like I was splitting hairs. Like there are some really fine differences in what makes an ideal client. And there'll be like huge long checklist of things that everybody matches up on. And then there's like a couple things at the end.
And isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating.
It's like additional.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. And you have checklists in your head all the time, I feel like.
Yeah.
Is your partner exactly like you with that?
No.
So yin yang. Okay, I get that part. Totally disorganized or?
No, she's not disorganized, but she's so spontaneous where I'm like, if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening.
But you sometimes embrace her spontaneous ways.
Yes.
So it kind of gets you out of your shell.
It does. Sometimes I kick and scream about it.
I complain the whole time, but then I realize it's fun. Yeah. I love that because I think getting out of your shell, like being uncomfortable, you just see other sides of you that make it better for business too, because you're going to find people who are just like her, just like you. Yeah. So you kind of know how to navigate that. Okay, so one of your success stories was recent. One of your best learning experiences.
Oh my goodness.
And it can be from any time. Like it doesn't have to be just right now with Sensible Lou.
Like the first thing that came to my mind.
Okay,
was, as it's like that was that Friends episode where they're like, the first thing that comes to mind. And
oh yeah. Oh yes. Oh gosh, I don't know if you want to share.
I'm dating myself. But yeah, the first thing that came to mind was as a teenager, my dad was a professor and he taught on Semester at Sea. It's this program that still exists for college students. They spend a whole semester on a ship and they circumnavigate the globe. Wow. Yeah. And spring semester, they go east to west, and fall, they go west to east. And we were on a fall voyage in 1994. I was a sophomore in high school. And I had to take correspondence courses. And we were always fighting with the schools because back then, wasn't so cool to be traveling all the time.
Yeah.
Now it's maybe a little bit more accepted. And so I'm doing these correspondence courses through Indiana University to keep up with my college credits. And one of the classes was world history. And it just happened, totally unplanned, that the order in which the lessons went for the textbook were the stops we made on the voyage. So so on the voyage, they don't go to like, the vacation spots. They go to like second world kind of locations. And so like when we were in the book, when I was studying the Byzantine Empire, we were in Istanbul.
Really?
It was amazing. And it was it was pre-internet. There was email, but, to send an email from the ship back then was not easy. And so I did everything by hand. And the first stop at every port was go straight to the post office, go mail my things, make sure they cancel the stamps in front of me so they don't steal my money, and make sure my homework gets sent off. And because I had no return address except for our home, I didn't see the notes from all my professors till we got back to Michigan. And the professor was like, this has got to be the coolest thing ever. I've never had a student who, was studying along with the book. And it was so amazing. I feel like I remember so much world history and like crazy factoids because I'm like running around Jerusalem as a 15-year-old and I'm like checking out everything. Like I read about that and I can see that now.
Oh my gosh.
And it was really magical. Yeah.
And you were 15.
I was 15.
I can officially say I've never heard a story like that. And of course, you had to get your homework in because you're you. So you had to run to a post office and send your. I love the teachers though. How they loved. I mean, yeah, you're right. It'd be a little different now. I feel like
very different.
That's really cool. But you didn't realize you were taking that same until you started reading it.
Yeah, I didn't realize the timing of the lessons would match up with where we stopped on the voyages. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't exactly 1-to-1, but
and it was you and your parents.
What's that?
Who was on the voyage?
Oh, my parents were both there. My dad was teaching. He's a geographer, so he was teaching courses. My mom's an accountant, so she actually got a job. She was the bursar for the ship, the accountant, and my sister was in her first semester of university, so she was a student.
Yeah, you both were.
Yeah, I just sat on the deck and did homework when we were in open waters.
Yeah, well, I mean that's everybody's. That's totally my story now. I'm taking it and running with it. That's amazing. Okay, so that's a huge learning experience you had. I'm just like, I don't even know where to go from here. That's really cool.
Yeah, but I feel like things like that, because I grew up that way, so things like that really shaped me to this point now.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like because I had so much self-direction growing up, like by the time I hit college was easy. If I had known better, I would have pushed harder. I wasn't the kind of kid who would do that, but I would have pushed harder to graduate high school early.
And just like the dual enroll thing?
Yeah.
Just to jump into college.
I took a class each semester of my senior year, but not the same thing as like.
I get that.
Really.
So what's some of your advice, I guess to every generation of just kind of knowing who you were, like even though you wanted to push harder at high school or something, but you kind of knew what you wanted to do and you were always like structured and learning and kind of absorbing everything around you. Like what's your kind of advice for everyone?
I think I'm still learning it. I think there's a happy medium between structure and being flexible enough to accept, change. I think one thing that's been pointed out to me really recently by some of my peers in the business community, someone described to me recently, he said he appreciated I have a bias for taking action. And I never thought about it like that because to me, I guess in my perfectionist brain.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm not doing enough, fast enough, quick enough. And I didn't realize that, I guess I do. I take action on things pretty quick. But I can recall times throughout life where I feel like I could have taken action and I didn't. Like I totally should have changed more, swapped out more classes in college and not punished myself with things that weren't right.
That's okay though.
But
like, I don't like these.
Yeah. But yeah, that need to be flexible because I feel like our times are changing so fast, right? Like it's not just
so fast.
Our technology, like there's a new phone every year or something.
Which it is, but
yeah, there is. but everything's moving really, really fast and it's just changing. And, there's jobs today that weren't there 10 years ago and it's going to keep happening, but faster. And when I was in graduate school, people kind of talked about entrepreneurship, but you were
now
still,
they have a major of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, they have like whole tracks on it. I'm like,
I could have used this.
I could have
used a couple of those classes. That would have been nice.
And there's a lot of data for those students to go off of now too, right? But I feel like everything is just morphing, and you kind of have to really be aware of it.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that you have to do what everyone else is doing. Like entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Some people are happier in traditional job sector, and there is nothing wrong with that.
Just do well at it.
Yeah. But being aware of what's happening around you so that you know you have options, I think that's important.
And I think just understanding that everyone has their own path.
Yes.
And it's like nothing's cookie cutter. Like
No.
it's never going to work out that way perfectly, or just like let someone enjoy their path they're on. Or people are like, oh, that's not going to work out. And you're like, it probably could. Like I think you're wrong.
And everybody has their own timing too, because we all have our own energetic pulse. So, I mean, there's times where my energetic pulse is kind of slow and lethargic. And then there's times when it's really fast and light. And you can't tell someone else that their timing's off, or that they're not getting somewhere fast enough, or,
Why didn't you learn this faster? And you're just like, what? Yeah, no, I get that. I think we definitely need to have a sequel for your episode to talk about all that energy stuff. It's super overwhelming for me, but I love hearing about it. Because I think that's a huge part of what makes you so successful, is you have that background of kind of going in. And I'm really big on like culture and growth, and like how you're going to grow is really how you maintain the culture of your company and how you really give off energy, right? So and you're bringing that to the table with people and your crazy organization in your head. But I think that's a huge thing to have on your background, because people forget that like you're kind of controlling the energy of your company. So if you don't have that on lock, like you can destroy a company.
I love the
and you
way
might have
put
the
that.
best process, but it's like
Exactly. Or you could have all the best people on your board or advisors or consultants, and if you're not there yet, if you're pushing it for you, I've seen it happen before. I saw that happen with some startup leaders in Austin. They were struggling so hard, and I can look back on it and like really feel for them now. Like, oh, they felt like they had to be this version of something, and they just weren't there yet. And I think the problem is like it's so tempting to skip steps, and we all have our steps, and I feel like all of us intuitively know what they are.
We just want to try to hop over.
It's so tempting. Who doesn't want to like, what is it, Chutes and Ladders? Who doesn't want to like skip a few rows?
I would like to. Can we get rid of those 3 steps and just like get to that end result?
And I feel like some people can skip steps, but the thing is like nobody's rewarded any faster. I feel like even if you manage to be able to skip whatever steps, they'll catch up with you and require your attention later. And I find that too in the work that I do with clients. A lot of times, I mean, my ideal client profile is pretty standard. These women have reached a certain consistency in work. And we do have some people who are beginner and they recognize they need to know this sooner rather than later. So that's awesome. But the average person has reached a certain amount of consistency. And it's not that they've skipped steps. It's just that the things that require their attention, the care and feeding of the foundation that makes their business run is now like tugging on them. Like, excuse me, business mom, like you forgot to, feed me first. Like you forgot to, take care of me and do all these things that need to be done. And, they start getting frustrated. Like, why can't I scale? Why is it so hard? And it's just because there's a lot of extra complexity that really isn't complex. It just needs attention for a minute.
So to our audience that needs your help, where can they find you?
They can find me at sensiblewoo.com. And I have something special for your people.
Oh, I love this. Hey, bring it on.
If you go to sensiblewoo.com/Katie Ray.
Oh, shit. We'll post that too when we post this episode.
They can enter their email address, and for 2020, I'm doing a $97 subscription called the 2020 Mercury Retrograde Survival Kit.
Okay.
Because people freak out with their tech around Mercury retrograde.
Yes, they do.
But one person's going to win a free one. So,
oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so sensiblewoo.com / Katie Ray, my name, KatyRuy. And then you add your email address so you can try to get a free 2020 Mercury retrograde
survival kit.
Yeah, so I'm putting every email I have in there.
So every month, people on the list will get an email with some practical, like a mixture of practical tips and also the more woo stuff. Like, what are rituals that you can do? Because astrologically, like retrogrades, it depends on the retrograde. But in the case of Mercury retrograde, of course, a retrograde's asking you to slow down. But in Mercury retrograde, I feel like our tech is asking us to back off for a minute And it's the perfect time to, say, do an inventory or make sure you run those backups and protect your passwords and all that good stuff.
I love that you bring tech, because I'm in the IT field of sales and marketing. So it's like great to bring that into it. Like, slow down, it's jumping ahead. Like, just slow down a little bit.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. Any Instagrams or handles or anything?
I do. I'm on Instagram at Sensible Woo. And, and through the end of 2019, anybody who does a half-day VIP gets to roll that whole tuition into
Your
the
program,
January course. So they only have to pay the deposit.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is lots of good stuff you're just giving out for the holidays. I love this. We're definitely going to have a follow-up on this. I think there's a lot we can dig into. And I think it'll be fun to see who gets their little Mercury retrograde survival kits. And again, Ginger is on the episodes from Sensible Woo, her amazing company. Definitely just look her up, even if you, I don't know why you wouldn't add your email address, but definitely just look her up. We're at Not a Great Whisper on Instagram, and of course on all major platforms. Also at The Real Cray, Krey. I can't spell my name today. And we are sponsored by McMullen Oil, and Morty's Music will send you off. Ginger, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I know how much
I'm so
fun
glad we met.
I know.
It was awesome.
It's going to be awesome. So thank you, everyone, and have a good one.